So our plan, it's built on the documents that I mentioned. It's built on interactions that you all had in creating those documents. Anyway, I'm not going to read the whole thing. Here we go. So we started out by looking at those reports. We then looked at the environmental scan ourselves, specific to Laney College, and I'll go over that in a minute. We then looked at your current program of instruction and applied a growth rate to that. We're looking out to the year 2022. The crystal ball's very misty at that point in time. However, with a good deal of accuracy, we, over the years, have developed models so we can forecast what the college is going to look like in the year 2022. Do we know exactly how many sections of math you're going to have? No. Do we know exactly how many sections of nursing or some other program you're going to have? No. However, we can tell with a great deal of accuracy, with the size of the wish generated, or the FTES, how much space you're going to need for classroom, for laboratory, for office, for library, the different categories looked at by the state. And you're going to have decisions to make over the next 15 plus years exactly how you're going to use that space and which programs this college is going to adopt. So let's start out with looking at the districts. These are the district's service areas, and we looked at how they interact, how they overlap, etc. We looked at many different metrics that you're familiar with, both internal to the college and outside of the college. Demographic information, population growth, etc., and also the profile of students attending the college. We then came up with, or we actually looked at the growth model created by the McIntyre Group. And for Laney College, the estimate was about a 1.5% per year increase in both WISH, weekly student contact hours, and head count of students. And this will take the college up to about 15,500 students by the year 2022. Now, many people ask, how do you know we're going to hit that number in the year 2022? And the answer is, we do know. No, the answer is we don't know. But what we do know with a great deal of accuracy is when you get to that size, this is what you're going to need for space. And that's what I'm going to get to in the next couple slides. If you hit that number 2 years earlier, 2 years later, it really doesn't make material difference. You have to start planning now for the facilities that you're going to need in 15 years.
A quick question.
Sure.
That model right there, does that take into the account that universities are cutting enrollment so that that's a new thing. So we're going to get the brunt of that being at the bottom?
Correct. First of all, this model was created over the past several months. So
okay.
We try to take into account everything we can. However, we've seen in the state of California these, maybe not exactly the same as this one, but we've seen dips and we've seen peaks in enrollments in community colleges. And the same thing with funding. Every 10 years or so, the state seems to be out of money and we have to get in the queue again. So the answer is yes, that we believe that in the long run, when we're looking out to 2022, this particular phase of trend will reverse itself. The economy will bounce back and, fingers crossed. So what you see here, lots of numbers. I'm going to try to clarify it for you. This is a top code summary of the program of instruction from fall '07 in this college. And we got that from the college. And we started with that as a baseline. What we did then, and I'm going to skip to this one. Oh, sorry. What we did then was apply the growth rate across all the different programs at the college. Okay, and this is just by section numbers. And see what the growth rate is. And then, by the state of California in Title V specifies these space categories. Okay? Classroom, laboratory, office, library, phys ed, AV-TV, clinic, demo, etc. And there are formulas that drive your allotment or your capacity for each of these categories. Now, there are 5 categories that the state of California tracks, 5 categories that the state of California funds. The state of California very rarely will fund a physical plant or a merchandising area. They'll fund classroom, lab, office, AV/TV, and library. And those are tracked by what are called cap load ratios. In other words, how well or how efficiently are you using your space? And our job is to help you put your best foot forward and qualify for funding for what space you need. Now, what this chart shows is your current inventory of space in square footage. In this column right here, you have 350,000 square feet of usable, assignable space on this campus. The second column is, according to Title V, what you qualify for in the year 2022. And the third column is the difference. And what you'll see here, and what we found, is that the college, according to the formulas given by the state, that you have almost as much space as you will need in the year 2022. Now, we've heard from many people at the campus, we don't have enough classrooms, and we don't have enough space. And that is true, that you have a situation where you feel that there's a lack of space. However, there are several reasons for this, and there's several strategies that we are proposing for you to actually rectify that situation. In other words, feel like you have enough space to do everything you need to do, but abide by the formulas that the state is going to hold you to, and the state will fund you on. So let me get into some specifics. Classroom space, the college shows a slight need for additional space, about 6,000 square feet of space. Okay? For laboratory, the campus is what we call overbuilt. There is more square footage in laboratory space than the state of California says you need in the year 2022. Now, how can this be? You want to ask first? Or?
Just can you give me an idea of what you mean by laboratory? What do you call a laboratory?
Any space that is categorized on your space inventory report as laboratory. It'll include traditional laboratories like biology and chemistry and those kind of labs. It also includes CTE areas for automotive and things like that. So those are all laboratory spaces. Now, in the space inventory that we just did, we tried to categorize things within the rules to the advantage of the college. So there were some spaces that are in a gray area, and we always try to defer to the areas that don't hurt the college as much. Yeah?
So I'm a little confused, but maybe it's because of the inclusion of all these different spaces, but in the Moss report, there was a clear statement that the science labs are inadequate.
Correct. Now, the reason that we don't look at this number and say, oh, you have too many labs, we got to close some of them down. Not at all. What we have to look at, and this is where the architects come in, is making sure that A, it's good space, and you have a lot of bad space on this campus. Bad space is space that either is inadequate or isn't sized properly. If you were in a classroom, for example, if you have a classroom that has 50 chairs in it and you've got 25 students occupying the room, you aren't utilizing that space effectively. And possibly, in the future, you're going to want to remodel some of those spaces. And in the laboratory situation, it's definitely true that it needs to be fixed. Now, the second cause of this situation is one, and this is not always easily surmountable, but using the facilities the number of hours a week the state says you should use it. In other words, they want to see that room occupied from 8 a.m. until 4 p.m. 5 days a week. And students don't always want to take classes at certain times of the day. But we would like, and one of our recommendations is that you really look at that and look at your schedule, and as much as possible, look at using those facilities as effectively as you can and over as much time as you can. So, okay, yeah.
Now, where does phys ed outdoor fall? Is that considered lab or?
No, phys ed outdoor has its, phys ed outdoor doesn't count at all for space. You can have as much of that as you can afford. Yes?
When you're putting up a new facility, are you putting it up for this year's